We're giving honor this evening to our Guru and our Param Guru. They're passing into infinity, into total freedom. But of course, it's from total freedom that they came, because they were avatars. It's traditional when we celebrate the Master's birthdays, we celebrate their life, what they did in that life, the joy that they brought, the impact of their life on perhaps their disciples and their devotees. But when we celebrate Mahasamadhi, you might say it's a little bit different, because not so much their life of what they did, stories of their life, but more it would be a celebration or a looking back on their legacy of what they left behind and how that work is carried forward. And so this evening, let's keep that in mind, because we are important in that legacy, because we, his devotees, his mission, his disciples, those people that carry it forward are his legacy. They're the living legacy, you could say, of Master's life. And it's for us as individuals, as disciples, that he came. He came for the world, and he came for the world in the larger sense of everybody and his mission in that way, but he came also for each individual soul who is trying to seek God, who is seeking that joy that Master embodied. Many years ago, I went on a camping trip, and it was in the Pacific Northwest, and there's a area there that's called the Puget Sound, and it has many different little islands in the water there. And I was camping on the shoreline of one of the islands, and there was a channel of water there, and perhaps maybe half a kilometer in the distance there was another island. So there was a channel of water between these two islands, and I was camping on the water itself, right at my feet. And at nighttime, sleeping there, on the shore of the water, I would see these beautiful large ferry boats. You would hear them as well. They would come through that channel, passing from Canada, going on to the other side where Seattle was located. And they would pass through that channel. Beautiful, all lit up, carrying the cars and the people. And they'd go through the channel, and then they would disappear. And about perhaps 30 seconds, half a minute, maybe a minute later, onto the beach where I was camped would be these large waves coming up, because a very large boat, small channel, very large waves would come. But the boat had passed, and then the waves came. And it's like that boat was a great force, had gone through, just like a great avatar comes. He comes through, and of course you see it. And you see the visual impact of that, beautiful as it is. But then the boat passes, but yet then something follows afterwards. And it's those waves that go out from the passing of a great Master that impact the world at large, impact each one of us. Now, we must remember, when we look back, and similarly, we look back at our Masters, look at their lives, the impact that they had, all the wonderful message that they brought to all of us. We often ask the question, why? Why did they come? What was their purpose in life? Why were they here? And of course, we know, what our readings and our understanding and what we've been taught. But one point that we have to always remember when we consider that question is Master, Paramahansa Yogananda, but of course, Sri Yukteswar, and of course his guru as well, Lady Mahashaya, and take it back to Babaji. These were avatars. We're taught that, we accept that as a reality. And if that is so, we have to keep that in mind. An avatar comes with a special mission. You could say it's an avatar's special dispensation that comes. Not just one avatar in this case, but a line of avatars come into the world with a special mission. And if we take this question from that point of view of this mission that it came with this line of avatars was not an expression of an individual's personality, an individual's desire, some karmic reason, because there was no personality there. Paramahansa Yogananda said, "I killed Yogananda long ago. No one dwells now in his body but God." In a sense, you could say, and literally, that God had descended through this line of masters into the world for a special purpose. And our job, you could say, is to be able to understand and attune ourselves with that special purpose. That, you could say, is an act of grace. The Guru's come, Master in this case, let's consider, he came into this world as a divine expression of grace. And to those who can attune themselves to that expression of grace, they're attuning themselves to that divine grace, and by extension, we attune ourselves to that divine will that's behind that message of grace. And so the Masters came as an act of divine will in this age for some special reason. So we have to take it from that point. There's something significant is happening now in their lifetime, and they came not just for the 20th century. Here we are in the 21st century now, and people will be looking back in the 22nd century, 23rd century. We're just a small part of a very long and significant story that is going to be played out in the years ahead. But we too, very importantly, we play our part, and that each part is very important. Swami Sri Yukteswar said that when the ages change, and of course it was he who introduced into the modern era this concept of the yugas, and in terms of how he interpreted them, in that we had moved from Kali into the age of Dwapara Yuga. He propagated that teaching against quite a bit of opposition, I might say, at that time. But yet he insisted upon it. And he said we have moved into a new age of Dwapara, an age of energy, an age in which the consciousness has increased. Now we're not in Satya Yuga. Dwapara itself is a bit of a restless age, an egoic time, but we had moved into a higher age. In every age needs a method, a sadhana, in order to accomplish what is being reinforced by the very energy of that age. And in Dwapara's case, it's an age of energy. And so we need a sadhana. Mankind needs a teaching. Mankind needs an expression of a universal teaching that already exists that will express the consciousness of that age. And so consequently, this was the gift to the world, Babaji introducing through Lahiri Mahashai, and then passed down of this technique of Kriya Yoga. And it fell upon our gurus to be the channels for the introduction of not just the technique, but the understanding that is behind Kriya, that this is the time for that to be introduced into the world. And they fulfill that mission, but of course, it then has to go out, and it's all of our, you might say, honor, our duty, our blessing to be able to be instruments for that divine grace that is going out into the world. This element of grace is something that I personally have been meditating upon, and this is appropriately for a subject like this evening. Remember that story that Swami tells. He used to tell. He told many times about how he was. We're told to be instruments of Master. Let God speak through you, as the way he put it. And he got up in front of a crowd, probably similar to this, and he began giving a discourse. And he said, "Well, I want to let God speak through me." And so he was silent, waiting for God to, you might say, speak through him spontaneously. And he was stood there, and 10 seconds went by, 30 seconds, and Swami says he stood there silently for about 2 minutes. Now, if I was to stop speaking for 2 minutes, it's a long time. It's a long time. And he says some of his friends and fellow monks in the audience were starting to perspire because they thought he had frozen up. But he didn't. He was just experimenting. And finally, he then began again because he realized God was not going to use him an instrument in that way, that he had to speak. But then, I will reason, I will act. But guide thou my reason, will, and activity in everything that I do. And then many years later, or not so many years later, but some years later, decade or so, Swami came to India in 1958. And he came with Dayamata, and one or two other nuns came with him, women devotees, they came. And they were in Calcutta, and Kolkata now. Then the Dakshineswar ashram there in YSS has master's work that he had started and passed on, was headquartered there. And so Dayamata and Swamiji had made a tour of India to see how the work was progressing. Master had left in 1936, and so they had now representatives, official representatives, 22 years later had come back. And Dayamata and Swami were lamenting that very little had seemed to take place. They were disappointed in some way that the work had not expanded and that it seemed to not be developing the way that they had hoped. And one of them expressed, what is going to become of Master's work here? And they felt that it wasn't progressing. And one of the other ladies said, don't worry, Master will do it. Master will make it happen. And Swami, somewhat wryly, said, yes, but Master's been here 22 years and he hasn't done very much yet. And Swami always said, well, maybe that wasn't the appropriate thing to say. But he said there was truth to it. He says, because Master will not do it by himself. God works in this world through instruments. And in a sense, when we celebrate Master's Mahasamadhi, when we celebrate his legacy, when we celebrate the legacy of all of our gurus, that means us celebrating not what has been done, but what can be done through those who attune themselves to the Masters and take this work forward. We are in a new age, and Master brought a new expression. There's no new teachings. These Sanatana Dharma exists from age to age. It doesn't change. But how that Dharma is expressed from one generation to another, from one century to one age to another, that has to be appropriate in order to penetrate and be appropriate to the consciousness of people in that age. And so you could see in Master's life, Master was a man of great vitality. Think of him coming out on the stage, how is everybody? And, people yelling back. He was a man of great joy. He was a man of great love. It was this enthusiasm for the divine path that God is for everybody. It's not the separation of you need to hie off to the Himalayas or go into the jungle, but in every aspect of what we do, that energy, that vitality can be expressed through God's grace in each one of us. But yet grace is something that we think of it as something we receive God's grace, that God's grace descends on us, and this is true. This is true. But there's more to it as well. God's grace involves us as well, of initiating that grace within us. I've told this story many times and lately because it had an impact on me. But a summary version of this story is the fellow who came to me, and he wanted to meditate with me. He was very inspired discourses that had happened in the classes, very inspired. He wanted to meditate with me, and I invited him to come in the mornings and meditate with me. And he says, yes, I would like to do that. And he never came. Again, never came. And then I was so mystified by that. I thought, wow. And I look back now. Of course, many of you I've heard this story before. But what was missing? He said, "I would like to come." What was missing? He didn't say, "I will come." I would like to come. What he was asking for, now, he was asking for the power to come. He was asking for the power of grace to come within him. But it did not come. We all want grace, but it doesn't come sometimes. We have to do something to be instruments for that grace. And in our inviting grace to come, and then acting in the consciousness of that grace, grace begins to flow. It's like we move my hand, and when grace is behind the movement of my hand, it's effortless, and we have power. Swami defined grace. Interestingly, it's not often easily defined if you think about it, but he said, the power to rise spiritually. The power to rise spiritually. It's God's power. And so with the Mahasamadhi, celebrating the Mahasamadhi, remember, God's power is there. God's grace is there for each one of us. But we have to invite that grace into us and then put it into motion. Not say, I would like to do something. We'd all like to do something. But some of us at least say, I will do something. In whatever way. And what that something is to be an expression of our divine gurus. The joy, the vitality, the infinite kindness, the compassion. Those who think me near, I will be near. Draw that down into us. And then don't let it stop there, because this is our duty as disciples, is to draw that presence of the Masters into our life, but then do one more thing. Let it pass through us and out into the world and express the Masters. And in that way, we fulfill our duty as disciples, to be an expression of Master's teachings, to take his legacy forward in a vital expression of all of our Masters, not just Paramahansa Yogananda, but of course Swami Sri Yukteswar, Lahiri Mahashaya. They were avatars. They came with a divine ray. And we can be expressions of that if we choose to do it. And then if we actually do it. Be an expression of that divine presence of the Masters. And then in that way, we fully honor our gurus as disciples, to be that in life, to share it, to be the change, you might say, as we have been saying in many of our other discourses, be the change that we would like to see all around us. And with that, I'd like to invite Duty to lead us in a chant. This is a chant, we don't sing this very often, but I think it would be thinking about this element of grace. Think of yourself in this chant as Master's power, Master's grace flowing through me and being an instrument for that and taking that forward in the year to come. So Duty, I'm going to ask you to lead it.
Words to this chant. It's a poem of Master's that was put together by a dear devotee who lived at Ananda village named Happy. Can you see it? God's power, vitality, good health, and strength flow through me. Can everyone see the words? Okay.